Hello friends, welcome back to Aunt Debbie's Boutique. Today we are on day 11, block 11 of our sampler quilt. Here's all the beautiful blocks we've made so far. Let's just take a glimpse at each one of them and see how far we've come. Now, I have to admit, the fabrics I'm using are very busy. So I'm going to be toning it down with just plain black sashing. Before we get to today's block, I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you. Today, we crossed over the last threshold that makes us eligible to be monetized. We crossed over 1,000 subscribers, and I am appreciative of each and every one of you. This is going to help me be able to afford to buy more fabric, like every seamstress needs more fabric, and supplies, and provide more videos for you. You could help me out by letting me know in the comments what kind of videos you like to watch. I'm not an expert quilter. I've done quilting for about the last 15 years, but I have sewn clothes for about 58 years. And so that's where my expertise really lies. However, every time I post a clothing video, it doesn't get near as many views as the quilting ones do. So that's why I've been doing more of the quilting videos lately. But if there's anything you're interested in me showing you, I've sewed a little bit of everything in my lifetime. Just let me know. I do like to keep my videos simple and geared down to where new seamstresses can learn how to do things that they previously thought were difficult. Okay, let's get into today's block. Okay, for today's block, we're going to use our strip that we had left over from yesterday's block. Remember the part that we cut off of one side? You need to trim that down to 3.5 inches wide by 12.5 inches long. We had about 4.5 maybe left over, and I did have to straighten a couple of my seams because I had some that weren't real parallel, but I fixed that. Then you're going to need 2 5-inch blocks of your background, and then choose any other fabric, and you'll need an 8 by 5 inch strip of it. Now this is going to be a simple block. It's probably not going to take us long to put it together, but it has a lot of possibilities when it's put in with other blocks like it, and it's great for using up scraps. You can make all these strips in scraps. And this is how our block is going to go together. Then, when you put it together with other blocks, you're going to form a secondary pattern with these fabrics in your corners that go diagonally. And you're going to have a stripe that runs across your blocks, or you could turn it up and down, or you could even do one side or the other. Let me get my sample block I made, and see, pretend these are all the same color. You'd have a stripe running all through your fabric, either up and down or horizontal, or you could turn every other one and get a different pattern. So you should be real experienced at putting blocks together by now. We're just going to put this block and this block together first of all. So I'm going to take it over the machine and put a 1/4 inch seam on each of these. Now, before we do that, I want to review a few things I'm trying to mention in every video. First of all, the fabrics I'm using are Buzzworthy by Canvas Studios, I believe it's called, and my background is a white Kona cotton. They're very busy prints. In hindsight, I would rather have selected smaller prints, maybe something not so with such big designs on it, because we're mixing all the blocks up. But it's still going to be pretty, and with the plain white and the plain black in it, I think it'll come together nicely. We want to do accurate cutting and accurate seams to make our blocks lay flat. So test your seam allowance, make sure you're doing a 1/4 inch or a scant 1/4 inch like I do. I use a leader, which is just a piece of scrap fabric that I start sewing on before I start chaining my pieces. And that just gives me a running start and helps me not to have any loose stitches at the beginning of my block, or for my block to get wadded up down in the feed dogs, or to have a wad of thread on the back of it. It makes life simpler. I picked all the blocks in this quilt based on their simplicity. Some of them are star blocks, some are geometric, some are flower. There's just an assortment, but I wanted simple, basic blocks, and I tried to not find any that were copyrighted by anybody. I wanted to use just blocks that were older and free for everybody to use. So they were picked based on the fact I thought a beginner could do them. When I first started quilting, the suggested quilts for beginners was just sewing a bunch of squares together to look like a checkerboard. And nothing could have bored me more. So I wanted something to show beginners that they don't have to just sew squares together, that they could have some fun and still it be simple enough for them to do. We're going to have 12 1/2 inch blocks that sew down to 12-inch square when we're finished. And we're on the next to the last one. So tomorrow we'll complete our last block. We usually iron our seams to one side. That seems a little messed up, but to one side, and that gives it more strength. It's harder to pull it apart that way than if it was ironed open. But there are some instances that ironing it open is just the best way. And we try to iron things in opposite directions from the block we're sewing to, so that we don't have a lot of bulk in our quilt. Okay, let's take this over to the machine and sew these 2 seams and then come back to the ironing board. Okay, let's flip these over and iron them to the dark side. It really is not going to matter a whole lot because our seams aren't going to cross. Okay, we have 2 seams left, and this simple block will be done partially because we did the hard part, this part, the other day. So let's take this to the machine and sew our last 2 1/4 inch seams. here's our block. Let's iron it. I'm going to iron it away from this strip because there's so many seams on that it's easiest to just iron it away from that. Okay, let's measure our block and see how it turns out. Now, this one, it's going to be hard to tell, but this is our center seam. And so I'm going to take that seam and line it up on a mark. Then I'm going to measure over 6.5 from that, which just happens to be the size, I'm sorry, 6.25. So it needs to be hanging over 1/4 inch here, and so we've got some extra. Let me make sure that we've got extra over here. Yes. I'd rather it be slightly off center than to be too small. Oh, I shouldn't cut towards myself. Let me cut the right way. Okay, trim that down. Now to find this center, I need to match these two seams. I'll just press a little, finger press a little dent there, little fold. Okay, now this needs to hang 1/4 inch over. We're in pretty good shape on this block. Of course, we didn't have a whole lot to mess up. Okay, here is this block, number 11 of 12. So that was short and sweet today. We'll do our last block tomorrow, and then we'll work on putting them together after that. All right, thank you for joining me. Thank you again for subscribing, liking, commenting, just watching. I appreciate you. Remember, whatever you do, do it to the glory of the Lord. I'll see you tomorrow.